Thank you so much, and thanks for letting me slip in to this first trophy lunch. This is going to be really informal, talking about a project that we just are initiating. We just found out kind of toward the end of December that we were awarded this grant, and so we're in the scramble to try and figure some things out because the grant allowed us to do that, to be able to figure some things out. Thank you so much for the introduction, Juan. And my name is Kainer, and as Juan was mentioning, I have a joint appointment between Forestry and the Center for Latin American Studies, and with the TCD program in particular here in the center. And so the TCD program has a long history of working with the Moore Foundation on different grants. I see some people, Sinamara and others who have worked with grants in the past with GIA, the infrastructure and the Amazon group, with other Amazon initiatives that we did. And so this is kind of a continuation of a series of things. And it's going to be super informal because we have not had time to pull things together like pretty PowerPoints and that sort of thing. So the name of the grant is The Power of Connections. And Vanessa's going to help with kind of showing some of these online. The Power of Connections, Harvesting Lessons and Strengthening Coalitions of Amazonian Countries. And up here, I have kind of the two main outputs that were both sides that we have promised to make. And that is to exchange and disseminate lessons learned. So it's a big push on what have people learned in the Amazon basin at this juncture? And it's leveraging people who, TCD alumni, we have a whole slew, over 400 alumni, I don't know how many we have. Many of them are in Andes Amazonian countries. And the Moore Foundation has a whole program on Amazon Andes Initiative. And so the idea is leveraging those groups along with other people, capturing lessons learned that's happened over those decades, and specifically in developing and implementing conservation. So it's not it's certainly going to be some new knowledge generation, but it's also trying to think through what has worked in the past. How can we build on that? Secondly, our main other goal is invigoration of existing networks and catalysts of new cross-generational coalitions. So this idea that we have coalitions already, how can we strengthen those? And how can we hopefully invigorate and reinvigorate new coalitions? That's the idea. And I should mention that when we say team, we have quite a few people that have been working on this. Betty, John, Pilar, and I, Pilar Useche, John Dane, Betty Loisel, and myself, who came up with this grant project. And Vanessa Luna has been on board even before we got the funds, because we were thinking we need to get this going right away. Vanessa Luna is on board as the postdoc, the current postdoc for this project. So I'll talk a little bit more about what other personnel we're kind of looking for and hoping for to help us carry this out. So the way I'm going to do this is to share with you some of our work in progress that we've been up to. Let's pick this one up, maybe over there even. This is a very messy calendar, a timeline, if you will. Stephen, I'm so glad that you can appreciate this. It's a mess.
I love messy calendars.
Okay. So remembering that it's capturing lessons learned and in developing and implementing conservation, and then networks. So this messy calendar, what I have here is the grant runs from 2025 as of now through 2026 September, end of September 2026. So it's really short, and so we need to do a lot of things fast. And so up here in black, if you can read my signals, up in black is kind of the UF calendar, key dates for us at UF here in 2026 too. And then I tried to point out some of the key things that are occurring within the grant. The grant starts January 1, theoretically. And the other thing that's very important is there's a spring course going on. Vanessa Luna has been leading. They've already started. How many of you are in the course? Some of you I know in here are in the course. So Vanessa Luna is leading a course that's going to be exploring themes that we're going to be potentially looking at in this grant. And the students are going to be interacting with some of those alumni and other partners in the field, helping us think through and get deeper into what it is that we need to know to prepare ourselves for the grant. What is the grant mostly consist of? What are the activities? Well, Vanessa's course is one, and we'll have some time in a bit, Vanessa, if it's okay, impromptu, to talk about the course a little bit and what it constitutes. But it goes all the way through the spring. And in that period, we're going to be refining themes to carry out 5 workshops. So what are these themes? What are we proposing? These are tentative themes. And what we're doing is we're able to go back and forth with some of our most trusted partners in the Amazon, people we know, students who know about it. The students that are in the course, I think all of them are from Amazon Andes countries, maybe with the exception of one. So we're really going to be tapping into different people's perspective. So these are the general idea is we're going to have a series of iterative convenings, if you will. We're going to have 5 workshops in the Andes Amazon countries we're thinking like from May through December. And then we'll have a big gathering, a summit is what we're calling it, in Gainesville in February of 2026. So these 5 workshops are going to be centered on 5 themes. That's our idea. We have 7 up there, and more said, those don't have to be fixed. You can work on them, you can adapt them, you can narrow them. So when we're talking with these what we're calling first conversations, we're talking with people and saying, what do you think of the themes? And they're like, oh, you know what's missing is illicit economies. Not just legal strategies, but illicit economies and illicit, how that's reconfigured the context. So we're kind of listening and trying to capture how we might reshape some of these. What sociobioeconomy, whoa, that's exactly what I do. I think that's really important. We're just getting feedback and iterations, and we're hoping that the class, that y'all will also be thinking some of these through. We said we would refine the themes by March, so we want to have something concrete that this is what we're going to settle on by March. And then the idea is we'd start doing these workshops. We know that the Moore Board is meeting for a 25th anniversary of the Amazon Andes Initiative and the Moore Foundation in Lima. We thought, oh, it would be great to do one of those workshops before then. So we've got that aspiration. I don't know if we can pull it off, but that's our aspiration. And the workshops, what we're imagining is 15 to 20 people would attend. People who have been implementing and conservation. So we're imagining practitioners, we're imagining a few local people, maybe a few indigenous people, but people that are real close to the ground, people who live in the basin, not us that live in Gainesville, kind of driving that bus and capturing their lessons learned. How those will space out, and these are different participants, maybe some participants in common, but different participants in 5 workshops based on 5 things. So that takes us kind of through here is what we're thinking. And then that learning that's gone on, the understanding, the lessons, we want to bring to the summit in Gainesville. And how many of you attended the Amazonian workshop, the one we had in 2017? Yeah, so several people. What was that like? here on campus. What was that like?
It was scientific.
Kind of scientific?
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
It was big, there were a lot of NGOs,
Big.
academic reps, funding was there.
Yep. And we're kind of imagining something similar, not necessarily so focused on the science as much as it is lessons learned and invigorating networks and capturing lessons learned. But certainly we want to have funders, we want to have NGOs, we want to have from the workshops, what we've talked about is having 2 theme leads that would have the power to convene, the intellectual capacity to convene people, along with support from us to actually carry out the workshops. We have, besides, in addition to Vanessa, who is the current postdoc, we have funds for another postdoc. So we're going to have support. We have funds to have, within each workshop, we have funds to have a local or regional videographer. We want to capture some of that and utilize the power of communications. That you can tell I'm not the one who's going to be leading that part on social networks and social media communications, but we have people who can do that, and we think it's incredibly important. So the summit then, we were thinking the 2 theme leads from each of the workshops would come to the summit, and it would be an opportunity for any students and faculty who are here to participate, kind of grow their networks and get to meet these people and vice versa. We see this as a really important moment, as Pilar said the other day, it's a really important moment to elevate the visibility of the center on campus, to elevate the visibility of the TCD program. So we have our own, interests in mind and what we're hoping to accomplish along with, capturing these lessons. So that's part of also what we're thinking. You might know that the Center for Latin American Studies has an annual conference. And so because we were able to secure that this summit in February of the spring of 2026 is going to be the center's annual conference. And we're super happy about that because it comes with benefits too. Besides being a part of the center, which this grant is, it also comes with a Bacardi scholar. We're able, every year the center brings a Bacardi scholar, which is not necessarily someone who likes rum, but it's someone, the Bacardi Foundation has sponsored someone to come in for a whole semester and give a course, prepare all of us kind of for the conference, contribute to the conference, and that's what we're imagining. And this generous Bacardi scholarship or fellowship also comes with a graduate assistant, so that scholar can also have a graduate assistant. In the past, we've had incredible people like Oscar Arias and Rial Grecci, and people who are of renown, but also we're looking for someone who can engage with students and faculty and kind of get us excited. And so that's one of the things that's also going to be happening in 2026. And the Bacardi Scholar teaches a course. Don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but that will be part of this suite of activities. And at the summit, we also have in the grant, we have training sessions that we're thinking, we were originally thinking that training sessions would be during that summit period to kind of, so people could exchange information, share tools, that sort of thing. So we're thinking that was our original thoughts, and some of our first conversations have said this, wow, it'd be interesting to do maybe some of the training maybe at one of the workshops or 2 of the workshops. So we're also, still figuring some of this out, I would say. And then the idea is from the summit, we want to take that information, the learning, whatever transpired, back to the participants in the workshops. Maybe not entirely physically, but maybe virtually. Take that learning and kind of bring it full circle and see what they think about what happened at the summit and how it affects what they talked about, or how the consequences of what they talked about in their own workshops. So, and then the grant ends on September 30th. So we're imagining that period from March through September, we're doing some of that. And then we have also listed just here in this little corner, some of the communication products that we're thinking or that we promised we would do. Things like, From each of the workshops, we want to have infographics that come out from summarizing workshop findings. We want to have, peer-reviewed pubs, of course, we're an academic institution. We've talked about opinion pieces for the media. We've talked about a couple of articles for the conversation. I'm sure many of you know about the conversation as an academic outlet for academics who are not necessarily in that field. Multimedia stuff is what we'd like to do. We have funds during the summit to actually capture some of that on multimedia. So we're thinking in that way. So that's in a nutshell. I would love to hear what John or Betty or others have to say, and Vanessa as well. Vanessa's been fast and furious working with us to kind of get these things in order. And but that is the overall piece. So I think if it's okay, Vanessa, I'm going to invite you just a little bit to talk a little bit about the class and how that's shaping up and what you're doing with that.
Of course. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, either remotely and there in Grinter. I am super excited to be part of this team and that we're launching this project. And as Karen mentioned, this semester I am leading the class which name is Harvesting Lessons and Strengthening Coalitions for Amazonian Conservation. In this class, we are discussing with grad students different conservation strategies in the Amazon that include collaborative management, innovative policies and legal strategies, conservation finance, socio-bioeconomy, research innovations, and reshaping institutions to bring different generations together to discuss these issues, and biocultural conservation. This class has some in-person sessions and some remote sessions. In the remote sessions, they are open to the whole TCD community, and they are held every other Wednesday. We started tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we are having Doctora Marlene Soriano. She is from the Bolivian Institute of Forestry Research, and she will talk about collaborative initiatives for achieving gender and youth integration in community forestry and indigenous territorial governance in the Bolivian lowlands. So you are welcome to join us. You might have seen already the flyer. If you received the messages from the Central Latin America Studies, you might have seen the flyer already, but TCD will also share it later. That's our first remote session tomorrow, and we will have it every other Wednesday. So you will see the flyers for the next sessions, and again, they're open to everyone. You will see the invitation to join in the Zoom. We call these sessions Amazonian Dialogues. Finally, in the class, we have in-person discussions. They are for the students, the grad students that are registered to the class, but I know that there are some grad students that share some interest on the class, but they're busy, they're doing field work, or they are done with all the classes, but they mentioned to me that they would be interested in joining one of two of these sessions. So if you're interested, please reach out to me, and we'll be happy to have you, people that have strong interest and already experience in conducting research in the Amazon are welcome to join us. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, send me an email. I will share my email here in the chat. And thank you, Patricia, for sharing. That's the flyer for the session of tomorrow, which is at 9:50 EST time.
Thanks, Vanessa. So that's another, a major activity that's ongoing. And John, it looks like you would like to add something.
So I came in late, so I'm worried that I'm going to repeat something that was already said.
Okay.
So please forgive me if I'm repeating something that was already said. That was in class. So the idea of this is that everybody who participates, whether you're a grad student going to the summit a year from now, whether you're a conservation practitioner attending one of the groups, the thematic groups, whether you're part of the network, that by interacting with this initiative, you are going to leave with a minimum of one new idea that's going to be really useful for your work, practical something you hadn't really thought about. and you're going to leave with at least one contact, somebody, I'm going to collaborate with that person. That's what we want. That's what we're talking about when we say the power of connections. Yes, we want to harvest lessons learned. Those are some of the outputs, but the real underlying idea is that everybody is coming in. Conservation is pretty lonely work, as many of you know, and that you're coming away with a new contact, not like I'm going to email and celebrate Semana Santa with you, but something that I could maybe, but something I can work with, and some new concept or idea or practice that I'm going to test that out. So I guess we want to emphasize that's really kind of what our underlying goals are, that people participate with, they can get something useful and practical out of it.
I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Betty.
Or maybe just, and you probably did answer this, I was doing more multitasking. For people that are in this room, how can they get involved if they want to get involved? What are the different ways? We already heard about, coming to the Amazonian dialogues. That'll be happening virtually every other week in Vanessa's class, or connecting with Vanessa to learn more about the class. What other ways can folks here potentially get involved?
So that's one of the immediate ways. Another thing that we are doing, as I've mentioned, we're looking for another postdoc that can help us throughout the project to carry out the workshops, to do some of the capture of analyses and cross-cultural concepts and mechanisms that we're looking at. We have more details on what we're going to be looking for in some of those workshops, because we're hoping to develop some cross-cutting themes that we can learn from, such that, this is an issue that covers people who work in biocultural conservation and those who work in conservation finance. And we have a series of things that we're going to be looking for and listening for. So kind of thinking that through, I'm sure we'll have other sessions like this. So we're looking for a postdoc. We're looking for a media person who can help us with communications immediately. We have some ideas of how we want to do that. But we're looking at some part-time OPS, maybe, I don't know how many hours a week.
I think we're thinking that we might split this person to give a little help to the TCD program as well, but it could be flexible, but we're thinking of like 6 to 8 hours a week. So, depending on if you've got a graduate research assistantship, you may or may not be able to bump up your salary depending on whether you're like a 0.33 or a 0.5. If you're a 0.33, you probably could bump it up a little bit more. So that announcement will be coming.
That announcement will be coming out, as will the postdoc position, but we have to run it through the US system before we can get it done, before we can make that announcement. But that's definitely coming on board. And the other way is we have, for each of the 5 workshops, we have monies where we want a graduate research supporter, graduate researcher, who would go and support each of those thematic workshops. 1 per workshop is what we're imagining. And of course, we're looking for people who are from Amazonian Andes countries. That's our priority. We don't know where these workshops are going to occur yet, nor exactly who's going to be attending, but we've already identified what we think are a couple of theme leads for some of the topics. And but we do want to have them in different countries. We're imagining a couple in the Amazon basin, in the Brazilian, in Brazil. We're imagining another sub-award to an Andes Amazon group out of the Andean countries. And then we're imagining a 3rd sub-award that can handle the 5th workshop. So thinking 2 workshops potentially in Brazil, 2 in the Andes, 3 in Andes Amazon, with different sub-awards that would then support it. So the graduate people we're looking for, the graduate students we're looking for, we don't have funds for tuition. What we have is funds for supporting summer work and getting you down there. So we don't have research monies, but it would be support to attend the workshop, to get there, and then do what else you want to do.
I think it's like 30 days per team. So we've got at least 30 days in the field and potentially more. That's a decent, the summer stipend would be 7,500, 5,000
That's right, because we have it for 2 years, because we're hoping to return the findings, vet the findings the next year. So that's another significant way that some students will be able to participate. And of course, we're looking for people who can help contribute to the project, and which is all of law. So that's another piece we're looking for. And then the summit, we're going to be really looking for people to participate. And that will be much more wide open. I don't know if that covers, that's how I'm thinking. That's the ideas we have so far. I don't know if Vanessa has anything new she wants to add, or if you have other thoughts, Betty. What have I missed?
And you talked about the theme leads, right?
The theme leads, we're hoping to have, we want to have 2 theme leads for each of the themes. And these are probably going to be more senior people who have the power to convene, who have the intellectual ability to do that. And we'd like to have a theme lead from X country and from X country. So shifting these things around, and in each of the workshops. So those theme leads then will be supported by what we're calling the UF team, the postdocs, us, the graduate student, to help carry out that workshop. We also have funds for an additional facilitator if needed. We have funds for simultaneous translation, because we're imagining that these workshops will probably either be in Spanish, Portuguese, English, or all 3. One of the first conversations we had, one of our key informants said, "What about the English-speaking Amazonian countries?" And we said, yes, we're hoping to include that as well. So that's what we're imagining. And the theme leads would be the ones who have that kind of convening power, intellectual, helping us think about it intellectually. What else am I missing, or?
Again, I'm not sure if you already mentioned this, but that these themes are pretty large on purpose, because they're meant to be able to encompass, leave room for lots of different kinds of ideas and approaches. So you could argue about any of these, but you could probably make a case that almost anything anybody does can fit into one of these, and that's on purpose. And the reason I mention that is that another thing, if as a grad student, if you work in the Amazon basin or are from there and know of people or have contacts that we should know about, please let us know. We want to, we don't know everybody, and we would like to. And a big part of this is getting our TCD alumni network engaged. This may have been mentioned again, but there are, how many videos? Well over 400. How many alumni?
Like
700 alumni TCD, many of whom work or have worked in the Amazon. And we want to give them an excuse to be getting in touch with each other and working together.
And I think people want to ask questions.
Sure. Definitely, you can ask a couple of questions.
Hi, everybody. Hello, fellow Gators. So great to be here. Hola, Karen. Everybody.
Hola.
It's so great to see you after so many years. It's crazy. But so for those that you don't know me, so I'm not a TCD alumni, but I'm a TCD alumni in Hard. Betty Loisel there, my advisor. You know, I was in her lab, and I was so in contact with everybody, with a lot of people there. And now I'm the director of the Tiputini Biodiversity Station located in the Yasuni National Park. So I have a couple of questions / suggestions, right? So
Right.
since that position, we are really into the conservation issue. As John said, it's a very lonely place, and it's also a very complicated place. And now for countries like Peru and Ecuador, it's extremely complicated, because now we have actors that we were not having in the past. Narco traffic, illegal mining are really, you know, these monsters that are so hard to deal with. So I think it might be really important if, by looking or thinking about the workshops, that we, if you allow me to include me already in this group, that we look for other workshops / initiatives that are gonna be congregating, you know, big networks. For instance, you know, all that fund, Amazonia Plus, I don't know if you know about it. That's the European fund that is bringing hundreds of millions of dollars for the Amazon. They are planning several workshops with conservation leaders, etc. So that might be, you know, a great place to just, you know, try to have some of these other workshops because people is gonna be there discussing some of these issues, and is way more efficient for some of us. If we're already there focused on that, then, you know, we do this workshop there. I'll be more than happy to send you, Vanessa, a couple of links so you can be in contact with these people. We can leverage on that. Then really fast, I think it's gonna be really important to include in the theme number 2, after innovative, I'll say innovative plus urgent policies. That is very important because, as I said, we have these emerging problems that are coming so fast that sadly, whatever we applied 5 years ago is not working. Like I said, now, I don't know if you saw the news, huge conflict between Guaranis and Quichuas here in Ecuador, close to illegal mining. We think is narco traffic, already giving them money. So these conflicts are now arising and really close. And of course, this is affecting conservation because that happened within the Yasuni Biosphere Reserve. And the final thing is, have you been thinking about how to make these networks last long? Because, you know, that's the big problem I see in initiatives that are bringing money, and then when the money is not there, then all these networks are falling apart. And count with the research stations for this, or the institutions, of course, you know, based in the Amazon countries, because we're gonna stay here and we're gonna be continue, you know, dealing with this. Let's see how we can include that explicitly in this because, like I said before, Ecuador and Peru have a lot to learn from Colombia, for instance. So I think it's gonna be good that we think on how, after all this is happening, that I know it's gonna be amazing information, and the initiative is actually really good, how we can make this last, you know, after the funding or the project is finishing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gonzalo. Those are great comments. Urgent, innovative, urgent policies. And that's one of the things we've heard from other people too, Gonzalo, how urgent these things are changing. Just some people we were talking with yesterday, they said the Amazon today isn't the same as it was 5 years ago in terms of these urgent matters. And narco trafficking is definitely one that's on the radar. So that's a really good point. And then I'm also remembering you talking about how can we extend this over time? How can we extend those networks? And it is something that we have thought a little bit about, don't know exactly how to tackle it, but we think also that's just really important. And we're at a moment when we can do that. So I appreciate you fortifying that need, that we need to be thinking long-term. How can we set these up? We know we're going to have, for example, we're going to be setting up a website. How can we use that to that end? We have other mechanisms that help to do that. I don't know if y'all, people in the audience, have experience with how to keep networks and keep up images together once the funding runs out, the classic, you know, issue. And then the other one that you talked about, the third thing, escaping me right now.
I think leveraging on other workshops and initiatives
Yes.
at the same time. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. So we know that there are a diversity of Amazon dialogues. And indeed, when you were writing this proposal, the Moore Foundation was like, hey, what other dialogues are out there? Maybe you can map them and figure out what else is going on. And that's part of the class task. I see Vanessa. Good. Part of the class task is to be looking at what are these other dialogues. And so Gonzalo's talking about one that the class can investigate and figure out what it is, who it is. And then one of our other key informants has said, yes, you should be tapping into other things that are occurring at the same time and maybe consolidating. Resources is one thing, but consolidating people's time. Because as one of our key informants yesterday was pointing out, there's this small group of people who are doing all of this. And so time, their personal time, their professional time is really valuable. So how are there ways that do that? You know, to take advantage of this workshop that's already happening. The COPE is happening. And the COPE is going to be happening November. We're fully conscious of that as well. So, Gonzalo, thank you for bringing up those three things. I'm hoping we can capture them. I think I'll remember them now. And plus, we're recording this, I think.
There's a question from Paula.
Okay.
Did she?
Thank you so much, Gonzalo. You can bet we'll be in touch with you more.
Hi everyone, I'm Paula Ungar. I think I don't know any of you, but I got this information because I work closely with UF on biocultural conservation conversations and also, well, for different reasons. And I'm very happy to be here. I was just curious to understand better how other institutions that are working in the basin can contribute and can collaborate, because I understand that the workshops are intended basically for people who are in the field and not like big institutions, but we might have contributions to make to the reflection on lessons learned. I work with, sorry, I should have started with this. I work with the Field Museum and this Amazon program of the Kainer Science Action Center. And we have been working in the Amazon for 20 years. So I think we would be happy to contribute with the lessons that we've learned over the years and our prospects, etc., etc. So that was one. And the other thing is just and a small addition to what Gonzalo just said, and that's that Anna, the initiative led by Gaia, is also another like basin-wide initiative that's based on conversations between stakeholders on different themes. So I'll be happy to forward you some information about that.
Oh, that would be great. Paula, thank you so much for attending and for your contributions just now. But definitely the Field Museum and their work has been at the forefront of our minds as well, because that work that they've been doing, that y'all have been doing in the Amazon Andes region has been fundamental. It's really people who have taken my community forest management know that it has shaped the way I think about how interactions with communities and interactions with biocultural conservation in particular. And so we need to think through exactly, because we are trying to target people who are in the Andes Amazon basin, but y'all's work at the Field Museum is in direct contact with people in the basin. And so we really want to figure that out. So any suggestions, any dialogue that we can get together with you and with others at the Field Museum. We have other connections there too. I know you know Farah, one of Betty's former students, is now there. And so we're hoping we have good linkages to enable that sort of direct conversation. I don't know if Betty has some.
Yeah, Paula, great to see you, and thank you. Many of you might have seen her biodiversity and conservation forum thing that we did with the biocultural conservation working series, and Paula was one of our key people that came in and gave us talk. Yeah, we are really just beginning to reach out to people, because this grant is so new and it came over the sort of the winter break at the university. And we have this whole big list of names that we're just beginning to reach out, and definitely the Field Museum is on that list of names. So we'll connect with you all. And it may be great if we set up a little, get several people, from the Field Museum and just do it as a group call or something. And reconnect with you, Paula, in the near future, if you're willing.
Great, thank you. Of course, maybe I should have started by saying that this is very exciting, and that's why I would be we would all be very happy, of course, to contribute as much as we can. Very exciting.
That would be great. We're big admirers of the Field Museum's work. Any other comments or questions, additions? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karen. This was and team. It's very inspiring. So someone who would love to see these things replicated worldwide, especially like Africa where I work, I have really two practical questions for people who would not otherwise like to participate, but also do something similar. How do you find the right grantor for this kind of initiative? Because this title really resonated with me. I never saw anything that could respond to this in the African context. And to us, so just a little bit of information of similar nature. And then I'm curious about application. I know it's down the line, but I'm also involved in a more scientific, multi-author process and getting to publications. And not everybody is really hard process, but especially in this process, oriented activities, what are your thoughts at the moment? And
Yeah.
how they will change down the line?
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So the way we thought of this grant is kind of the grant thought of us. Moore has been working with TCD for a long time, and they were the ones who sponsored that Amazonia workshop way back. They're the ones who sponsored the GIA. So it's a long conversation, and we are fortunate to be in with have access to be able to talk about things. And the way the grant developed, the project developed, it was also for me very interesting because I was working with the program officer very closely and her giving feedback, hey, you know, what about these other dialogues? Like I was mentioning, what about these other dialogues? Could that be mapped in the class? You know, why do you need 2 postdocs? You know, tell me about this. And so it was a process of developing it over time. And I said, so I guess we'll narrow down the 7 themes. And it was just, no, just, you don't have to. And think it through, talk with your first people, talk with the key informants like Gonzalo and Paula and others, and figure it out how you want to narrow it down. And so that's what we're trying to do, scrambling to do that. So we feel really fortunate about that. And they like the idea of connecting people. So we were lucky in that way. Secondly, we were asking about the writing process with multi-authors. We do have at least some ideas of cross-cutting themes and mechanisms that we're imagining listening for in these workshops. How that's going to change, I don't know, but you probably know that TCD focuses a lot on like so how are you empowering people? How within the workshops, asking the participants, how are you empowering people at the local level? How are you figuring out benefit distribution that's fair? How are you handling these contexts of uncertainty, whether it's guerrilla warfare or new actors on the scene or mining? How are you, I'm trying to think about what are the other ones. How are you, we have like 6 or 7 things. I had those written out somewhere, but I didn't bring them up. But we have these things that we're listening for and imagining kind of a matrix that we're filling out in lessons on how to deal with these things. If that's how it's going to play out, we'll find out. But that's what we're imagining right now. And, you know, from our position, at least from my position as a natural scientist, multi-co-author things are the norm. So we sort of assume that the more the merrier kind of thing.
Just a couple of thoughts. I think it's really fascinating, the comment that you made about how can we do this now, sort of thing. And what we did do at the Amazon workshop was we did have a number of funders there. We had MacArthur, we had Moore, we had Ford, you know, and so thinking it may be really interesting to kind of strategize with Avasita and with Maria as this process goes on, because they're in contact with all these other foundations as well. I mean, this is the Andes Amazon Initiative and all, right? So this geographical focus. But thinking about what other foundations buy into this kind of process. And then maybe trying to get one of those foundations to come to the summit in February 2026 as kind of a learning process for them.
Yeah, that would be.
Well, and that's in the Center for African Studies, yeah.
It's interesting, we said for another conversation, but there's much less focus, according to me, knowing from all my internet colleagues where processes and bottom-up approaches have been developed for longer. In Africa, at least West Africa, where I work, a bit less of this. So that's doesn't mean that it can. I mean, I think it's developing. It's just a conversation with also foundations, especially on the rate are very limited. So it tends to be very good additional that's for another conversation.
Yeah. And Renata, we had also thought for the summit, from the get-go, we even have some funding for bringing in outsiders, as we're calling them, people who we would like to have, who are outside the basin and outside the Andes Amazon context. Like we'd love to have some Indian colleagues who get it, who have been working this sort of thing. Have them listen in, have them come up with new ideas, have them say how they've been approaching it. Kind of as listeners and contributors, some people from Argentina, maybe people from Africa. We talked about a couple of African names.
Nice.
So trying to think that this could be really interesting for us. It's kind of for selfish reasons, but also enabling a larger. Yeah. Awesome.
I don't like that question. Maybe a good idea to find people that begin participating in the project is to bring someone to ATBC and speak about this initiative, because many people who are working and listening to it completely there. So it can be just like an open conversation. Hopefully bring a lot of interesting people. But I was curious about how to guarantee the attendance of many stakeholders to the workshops, because I'm thinking, for example, in Colombia, many environmental leaders might not want to show their faces in front of other stakeholders, because that will be risky for them in the future. So how can you guarantee that the conversation will be open?
Yeah. Any ideas?
Like, as soon as they were explaining, I was like, oh wow, how?
Yeah, I mean, if people cannot congregate, then, that's obviously a huge limitation. But we do feel, we definitely are thinking predominantly in person. We're not, at this juncture, we're not thinking, online, in person, jointly. We're thinking in person because of the richness of that.
But just to clarify that,
Yeah.
the initial meeting for the thematic group meeting in person, but with virtual meetings, either leading up to it or following up on it.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And so that might be a way for people who are uncomfortable or, but we do feel pretty strongly about the in-person bringing people together.
I was thinking maybe an option can be like if you have, there will be certain actors that you might not be able to combine, like you meeting with social art and the politicians and social people that exist on that side.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the goals would be to exchange the points of view later on in the summit. They were not able to combine you, but
Yeah.
gather information.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah. Thanks. Other thoughts, ideas?
Karen, could you share the last comment from, I guess it was Claudia, because we couldn't hear here from Zoom, just to make sure folks in the Zoom.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Claudia was.
Claudia can come closer to the mic, or you can.
Claudia, why don't you come closer to the mic and people can hear better?
ATPCs,
Yeah,
people in person.
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the comments was maybe to bring the idea of the project to ATBC, so that some
The
people
Association of Tropical Conservation
and Development.
Biology, tropical biology.
Yeah, that the conference is actually going to be in Mexico. I know of a few people in US that is already coming, so bringing that idea out there might gather some interested participants. And the other idea was more like curiosity on how to involve different actors on the workshops, like how to combine people that might not be feeling like comfortable enough to share the same space with other stakeholders. How can you deal with that? And something that I suggested is maybe do like gather information from one group and the other and combine that information on the summit so that everyone know the different points of view without being like in a conflict while the workshop is happening. That was all.
Yeah, interesting point. Thanks for sharing that.
As I'm looking up, I also see Paula's contribution in the chat. So Vanessa, just a little reminder if you can save the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, Sino Mar.
So I was wondering if you, as a group, discuss.
Can you hear Sino Mar?
You can come closer, Sinomar, to the mic, or just speak louder, please. How awesome that works too.
Okay, now can you hear me, Vanessa?
Yes, we can hear you perfect.
Okay. Now I was take some notes and try to understand this idea of harvesting lessons. So how, as a group, you were thinking about that? Because I also was thinking what and why people do connections or coalitions, or they wanna collaborate. Yeah. So in this sense, also, I think when Gonzalo started to talk about like conflicts, I think the recent history in the Amazon is not easy. So I also participate in a Congresso Latino-Americano de Conflictos Ambientales. So all this came up about narco traffic, so assassinations, all like illicit problems. And I think this is kind of unfortunately key point about putting people together. For example, when we see some far right wing party took power, so I think people they start to think how we can connect each other. Yeah. For example, now that Paris Agreement just like vanished here, yeah, in the federal level. So probably those ones they want to okay, let's strengthen again. But also, I just took note, and I want to finish about like some movements, yeah, about marginalized people or women's movement, yeah, some observatories, directories, councils, cameras. So all these could be also kind of legal strategies and policies, yeah, and they are not innovative. Actually, they also can be very old, in the way people just get together and fight for let's put them down. Yeah? Many cases, United States, so they have like rivers that they want to recover or restore, and they have groups, allies, and have like I don't know, monthly meetings to talk about that. And also, not the last, but I want to finish here about another thing that I could understand better. It's about religion. So it makes a lot of difference in the Amazon about coalition. I don't want to go. I don't want to. Actually, I don't know how they do deep because I didn't work with that. But also they finance, and we have like key in the conservation finance and some religion groups. So they very important, and also they are important to do conservation. Some parts. Thank you.
So thank you for bringing up those different variables, really different sources of variation that's out there. Religion, gender, indigenous groups. It's so true. And how do you deal with all that? And again, hearing the fortification of illicit economies, that's just kind of so important. And the idea of how are we going to harvest these lessons, we have some ideas. In talking with people yesterday, even it's like, hey, what my lessons, this, it's like, okay, and so thinking it through and thinking through, maybe we need to have a framework. We don't have that in terms of what lessons are. We're just now at this point where we're listening and trying to figure out, okay, what will be some of those lessons and how are we going to harvest? One of our key informants yesterday was talking about a method, for kind of when you get people together and how we could potentially capture the timeline and where those lessons came in the timeline of the context of that particular locale. So definitely want to be thinking about methods for how to do that, include, using some of the information knowledge that y'all have. So many of you, how many of you have ever organized a workshop and tried to lead some things like this, right? And then, also pulling in how workshops have been done here in TCD and bringing in context of even within the groups that John works with, that's going to TCD all the time. And we have people that have a lot of experience in how to bring groups together, capture lessons in an active, interactive, and creative way. We haven't thought about the danger. I haven't thought about the danger of bringing people together. But something you'd be thinking of in the time. Thank you, John. Don't talk too much. Any other thoughts or? Yeah.
Yes, to share, talking about the experiences and ideas. I have been part of this, when in my country, we have this, flexi, all this, one of the ideas because it was hard to have a concept like a.
Can you hear Yadira?
Yes, we can hear her.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just an idea. We were always talking about this conflict because after we start these flexi conversations to define many concepts in different groups. And I remember one of the things was, yes, we feel one on the side of the table if we were the other group and the other side because we just were coming out of cook of the top. So it was like, I cannot trust these people on the other side. So one of the things that helps that I think for most of us, I include myself because I participate, is to have these very simple guidelines. One of the things that work, we define ourselves. And also, these guidelines were mostly about legitimacy and legality in terms of who represents who. I mean, are you saying you are representing this group because legally you have a paper, or are you really legitimately coming from this group and can talk about this group? And so that's one of the things. And the other was to have a facilitator, not only the ones who organize the workshop, but one who really make sure that all the voices were heard. And that at the beginning was hard. I mean, was easy because the European Union paid for that person. But then that person was gone, so they scrambled, start again, because everyone was fighting for having the voice and being represented. So I just want to add that because, it is hard to put people, especially when people want be heard and have important things to say, but is afraid of who is in front of to talk about, especially when there is a lot of issues. And my country is a lot of murders for criminals, for environmental defenders. So that's something. Just want to add that experience. Thank you.
And Yadira, did y'all have the guidelines? Did y'all have a specific set of guidelines, or were they developed? You said they were developed.
Yeah, we had it, but that's the point. I mean, we were always saying, who is going to keep this because it needs someone to the head on. Keeping those, not only having it, but making like valid during every meeting. And that's a start. And it has to be someone neutral with the capacity to do it. I'm talking about that because it's the implementation of everything, and because everything we talk is valuable, and we feel that it could be implemented. And that's the hard thing too. I mean, because people sometimes participating, but people get like, I would say, don't, as you say, most of the people who have something valuable to say is really busy because it never had time to show up. So it's busy doing things. And so when they want to be on the table, it's because they believe it's going to happen. Something is going to change. And so making sure that is really tough because you need the person who is facilitating and also taking notes and making sure everyone is talking and everyone has a voice, has to have some permanent. And doesn't have to be from the government, at least in my country. We were really like asking for that person, and it happened during like 2 years, but then it was gone. So the papers are there, but we don't know. Some of those were not anymore taken care. So yeah.
We have to exit. Okay. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Really,